A helping hand, story number 3. She was the type of girl that got weird looks whenever she would go straight from one class to the other without taking a break or even going to lunch. She was punctual to the T, and if she was 4.5 minutes early, well, then she was late. She would be sitting there already when other students piled into the classroom patiently waiting, twiddling her thumbs and ready for class to start. She would pay little attention to comments made or questions asked as to why she wasn't going outside or even dare eating during lunch. She was more concerned with being inside of her next classroom before it even started. It got to the point where one of her teachers would have to unlock their classroom door immediately after lunch started just so she could then leave her class and wait patiently for the bell to ring, signaling lunch is over, and then walk inside the teacher's open door. The teacher normally had the door locked and would go off to lunch. She did not like this though and complained to the principal in order to force the teacher to leave the door unlocked. She would then spend 5 minutes before lunch let out all the way until after lunch and would of course be the only / first person there waiting while all the other students piled in. Notice earlier I said she would get out of her class 5 minutes early and go over to her next classroom and wait for the teacher to release her current class to go for lunch, and then she would straddle in while the teacher went off campus. Yeah, she also had to get permission to do that from the principal as well. She made the argument that if students got to bring dogs to school, she could leave her class 5 minutes early in order to head over to her next class and set up shop as she waited for the current one to get out. Students that were in that class no longer need to look at the clock anymore during the final countdown until they were released for lunch. Once they saw her body silhouette through the glass window, they knew lunch was minutes away. Not any more than 5 minutes or any less. Well, technically it was like 4.5 minutes because the principal only gave her permission to get out of class 5 minutes early, and it took about 30 seconds for her to run over to the next class. She wanted to boost the time she was let out to 5.5 minutes early, but the principal wouldn't budge. She wanted the extra 30 seconds to compensate for her journey over to her next class, just in case anything along the way went wrong to slow her down. She wanted around 5 minutes to make it work. 5.5 minutes minus 0.5 minutes leaves her with 5 round minutes to make it to class. Did I mention her name was Shi and was from Japan? She gave her first hand job at 25 and knew 2 words in English, happy and ending. She had a studio near the beach actually. She did good for herself, and I'll share how. She had a massage studio where she was the only employee and did everything from setting up times to recruiting. The massager, of course, would always end in a hand job, which sounds amazing at first glance, and then things started getting weirder with the clients. She would sometimes have to wait and wait and wait and wait for them to get there. Let's look at an example. One would arrive at 5:57 to make his 6 o'clock appointment. Notice how she is waiting for someone to come in early. Long story short, she visioned numbers all day long as well as clocks and cocks. She even had Tinder and would offer her services there as well. Things started off very casual as she and her male date would go out for dinner, go to the studio to get jerked, and things would be cool for both parties. She was able to hide her drive for time and punctuality in order to rope in another client. I don't know if I'd even call these men clients. They were more like free-willed, subconscious sex slaves with little education or free will. She was good at her job and would go nights without sleeping, swiping away on Tinder, setting up dates, and rearranging her work schedule to maximize the amount of people she saw. She played a numbers game with herself and would actually cut people off her work list. The earlier people showed up to appointments and met their time frames, the more concrete of a spot they had, and let me tell you, she's business was like crack. Once you kind of start, you never really stop, for both the clientele and owner. She literally had Excel sheets on her wall showing names, times, month, and dates in order to stay on top of her busy schedule. She also was a data whore and would gather averages, medians, and modes just to stare at numbers on a screen. She had so many trials going on for her, she was able to go up with almost exact percentages of how early people came in or how late they would run and how many times. The thing is, she couldn't tell people, "You're late, I'm not going to see you," literally because of her broken English. But more importantly, because she was a business owner, and how unprofessional would that be? She would just kind of hope to replace the person with a more early arriving customer. The men loved it anyhow, not being replaced, but her massages and hand jobs. Periodically, they would get taken off the schedule and she would be short with them. But that was because she had found someone else, and there was zero chance she was going to tell them they were being replaced because they weren't arriving early enough. She kept to herself for the most part and would just work, nothing else to it. All she saw was numbers in her head and would live for her next appointment. She didn't even care about making money ever. She merely was renting an oceanfront studio out to have the clientele available to spend the money. She had done research and found out that coastal communities were more likely to spend money on this sort of business, so damn well she was stationed out here and ready to go whenever. This actually reminds me of another story, and I'll come back to this one if there is time. There is another person that played a numbers game and ruled the roosts of with the social media dating world. But instead of this person visualizing numbers, this person wanted a baby and used numbers in order to get one. Her genetic ticking time bomb told the 27-year-old her that she needed a baby and pretty much went against unethical measures to get one. During the course of 1 month, this new person had 28 men over to have sex with her. Yeah, sounds great at first until you realize what she was doing with the fluid-filled condoms that were going in the wastebasket when the men finished. Only safe sex was performed, and this was done so because she just didn't want any sperm swimming around inside of her. She kept track of which man threw away which condom and would actually save the condoms along with the sperm inside them and put a name with a face next to each rubber. Her closet was basically a refrigerator filled with used condoms with a yarn pointing at which man supplied the sperm. At the end of the month, she was going to pick her favorite genetic makeup and implant the sperm inside of her. Without telling the man, of course. Her practice was unethical, but through human nature, no one ever found out because of the 80% of one-night stands she had. No one ever hit her up again. The remaining 20% that did, she cold-heartedly turned them down. It was her time to have a child, and it didn't matter if it came from the bottom of a trash basket filled with used condoms in the corner of her dimly lit bedroom. She was going to do what she wanted. One person did escape, though. After sex was over, he took the condom off and asked, "Where can I throw this away?" She responded with, "You see that trash can over there in the corner?" He walked over, and just as it was about to leave his warm fingertips, he realized there were other condoms laying in the bottom of it in a mass. He gripped onto the condom before it was too late, and walked briskly into the bathroom where he wrapped it in toilet paper and flushed it down the toilet so it would be, ironically, unusable. She lay in the bed motionless with a smile on her face as the man left her house. Maybe it was his sperm she would have ultimately used. You just read two stories. One of a Japanese woman named She, and another of a woman whose name is not given, but referred to as She. Don't get the two mixed up. Two different stories as well as time frames.
Yeah, so I actually really liked story number 3 for many reasons. So it's one story. It's called Story Number 3. The title it's called the title of story number 3. It's called A Helping Hand. And I like it. Sorry, my nose is fucked up right now. The first half of the story, the one of the Japanese girl actually named She, that story doesn't really have too much meaning. But the thing is, it was just one of those random things that I thought of. Like trust me, like by the time this magazine is over, like you're gonna be like, there's other political based, like, oh fuck, I wrote this because of that. Like, the first half of story number 3 literally doesn't really mean anything. But I just wanted to include it. I thought it was a cool story. Obviously, I'm biased. I fucking wrote it. It's just kind of like goofy. It's kind of weird. It's this person visualizes numbers to the extreme, and notice I put in small details. She wanted 5.5 minutes to get out of class early, and then to make it to her next class, or like to be waiting there for like when lunch gets out. They originally gave her 5 minutes, but the thing is, she would burn 30 seconds of those 5 minutes walking to her next class. So she's getting to her next class with 4.5 minutes. before lunch gets out. She wanted 5 minutes before lunch got out. So just pay attention to small details like that. It's just like, I don't know, I feel like I kind of created like a psychopath, or like someone that's like unnecessarily just so hyper focused and emotionalist and just so dotted in on just like numbers, time frames and shit. I don't know. Maybe deep down I'm kind of like that a little bit. Like I kind of want to know like time frames, and I'm always like trying to plug pieces together and see what fits. But yeah, that was. Oh, and then yeah, I felt like taking. I don't even know why, but I took a job at the dog community, like the people that have the emotional support pets. And I don't have any reason to take a job at them, but I included it in the story for some reason. I don't know. I was just like typing and shit, but like I was just like, oh, these people got to bring their animals to school. Like this girl named she would get out of class 5 minutes early. So like just kind of I don't know, tit for tat, just petty bullshit. It's in the story. The second part of the story. Oh, and then it kind of says that she turns into like the massage therapist person. So this story popped into my head, dude. It was probably like 2017, like years ago, like 4 years before this magazine even came out. But we're at our homie Orion's house, and he has like a studio on the beach in Morro Bay. And then it's literally called The Studio. And then one day we were just like fucking like laughing and fantasizing like, oh, like what if like his studio was like a massage parlor, and like this lady like ran it, and like literally like we were saying details in real life from this story, and that just stuck in my head from that night. And I was just like, oh dude, that'd be so funny if like somebody was like you know how like massage people, they're like, okay, like chill, like yeah, like come over, like we'll get you going. They're on a time frame, but the thing is, this person's time frame, this person's pissed off at you if you're 5 minutes early. They're like, dude, I want my next cock in my hand. I am ready to massage. Numbers. Just when you read this story, just think of tit for tat and just numbers and hyper focus.
Tit for tat.
And then the second part of the story, that was based on a true event. So we all know this person that went on a date with this one girl that he met somewhere. And he went over, and they fucked, and then he goes to throw the condom away in her like trash basin, and in the trash basin there appeared to be like a mound of used condoms. So immediately what my brain does when I hear that, I'm like, not conspiracy, but just like, oh my god, like what if this happens? And I just start like fun like creative shit just like starts going off in my brain, and I'm like, dude, like what if this person was bringing all these men over and kind of like picking her cream of the crop, no pun intended, like fucking like, you know, like she's her genetic clock, which I included in the story, it's ticking. She's ready to pick her cream and you know, impregnate herself with one that used condoms. And like right when the guy leaves, she's like putting them in a fridge and emptying out the condom and putting them in like little vats, and there's like names and phone numbers and like their like Tinder profile picture printed out and like glued on like the little vasings. And she's just like, okay, I'm gonna get pregnant soon. The dude doesn't even need to be in my life. Like I'm gonna pick the right bearer for our child. And he's gonna leave, and she's gonna have this fucking kid, and he never fucking knows, because this world is fucking crazy. So that was story number 3. Peace.